Hey everyone, welcome back to A Rural Music Teacher, a podcast for music teachers who have chosen to go off the beaten path. I'm your host, Andre Wilkins.
And I am also your host, Katie Oglesby. This is a podcast where we strive to educate, elevate, and encourage rural music teachers of all levels in pursuit of a fulfilling career in music education. Andre, can you please tell us about our podcast values?
Absolutely, Katie. This is a podcast where we strive to maintain positivity. We want to be solution-based, and we want to learn from each other's experiences and strengths and be a safe space to be vulnerable with our struggles and figure out solutions together. And this is not a place for us to throw our colleagues' programs under the bus, judge others, or let our egos get in the way. I would like to say this looks different than our usual place to record because we are at Adams State University's Top of the Nation Honor Choir, and we're chaperoning, and that's why you'll see my cell phone out because I have to make sure the kids are, not vaping. Katie, would you introduce our very special first ever Rural Music Teachers podcast guest?
First guest! I am very excited to welcome our very first guest to this podcast. Katie Knutson is a wonderful friend of both Andre and I, and a wonderful music teacher here in rural Colorado. So, Katie, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, where you went to school, where you've worked so far? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. First off, thank you, Katie and Andre, for having me. I'm super excited to be a guest on this very first podcast.
Yay!
That's awesome. And just a little bit about me. So I grew up in Centennial, Colorado. I went to Eagle Crest High School in Cherry Creek School District, so very, very large high school. I think we had like 3,000 students at our high school. Our marching band was like 140 when I was there. Just a very big program. I got a very robust music education experience. Shout out to Jason Mabry, my high school band teacher. Wouldn't be the person I am today without you. So then after my high school experience, I went up to CSU Fort Collins, got my music education degree there. I'm a clarinetist, so I was in the clarinet studio there. That's how I met Katie Oglesby, is we were clarinet buddies in college and everything. And it's so cool that, now we teach in the same area now. So currently now I teach at Alamosa High School and Ortega Middle School here in the town of Alamosa. And but I did not start here. So after I graduated from CSU, I went down to a very small rural town called Walsenburg in Colorado. It's like 40 minutes south of Pueblo. And I will say, I grew up in a very urban environment, and then I went to a very, very large university. I did not ever think that I would end up teaching in rural schools. I always thought, okay, well, I'm going to get a job on the front range. There's always like the front range jobs and then the rural jobs and everything. I always envisioned myself getting a front range teaching job. I knew that I always wanted a secondary position. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll just apply. It was hard. It was hard. Getting a front range job just right out of college is very difficult. Did you want to interject?
I kind of did.
Sure.
No. You also started applying to schools like height of the pandemic when we were in lockdown. Like your first teaching job was when there was a lot of restrictions in place.
That's right. So I graduated CSU in May of 2021. And then, so that was kind of after everything started kind of opening back up again, but there were still some restrictions. So by the time I applied for my first teaching job, I was due to start teaching in fall of 2021. And so I just kind of applied everywhere, and I'd heard of Walsenburg. One of my really close high school friends, her family is from that town, and so I was asking her, and she's like, oh, well, it's so different from the urban environment. I don't know if you would like it. And I was like, you know what, let me just go and give it a shot. And so I had an interview. I toured the town, and I had some very nice townspeople offer to show me around and everything. And so they just took me on a tour of the town, and I saw this cute little town with the background of the Spanish Peaks, and I was like, I don't know why I'm supposed to be here, and I don't know for how long, but I know that I'm supposed to teach here. I'm supposed to take this job. So I emailed the principal after I got offered the job a couple days later, and I said I would be so happy to take this job. And I loved it. I loved my time there and everything. I was there for 2 years. And then I started grad school at Adams State, where I'm currently in the pursuit of a master's in music education with an emphasis in instrumental conducting. So I was in Walsenburg's an hour and a half away from Alamosa, so I'd commute over La Vida Pass and everything sometimes to just like go get some conducting experience. And that was really hard. My being a full-time teacher and everything, and then also trying to do grad school was very challenging, and so I really struggled with that.
So, getting an instrumental conducting degree and teaching in Walsenburg, what kind of ensembles did you have to conduct in Walsenburg, and what were your struggles getting in front of a larger group?
Sure. So, in Walsenburg, and I can't remember what my thought process was going into that job. I kept a very open mind. I knew that it wasn't going to be anywhere close to the numbers or anything that I experienced when through my music education experience as when I was a student, but I kind of went into that job, and I ended up teaching. I taught 6 classes, so I had six classes. We were on a 4-day school week, so there was no like block scheduling. Often schools on the Front Range do block scheduling, kind of if it fits in, and so we just had 4 days a week, 6 classes, and I taught high school concert band, middle school beginning band, drumline, choir. It kind of depended on the year, but like sometimes I would teach like one year I taught a theater class, another year I taught a jazz band, and then another year I taught like an independent music study class. So I was actually I remember feeling really shocked when I came into that position, because I was like, all right, what do you want me to teach? And they said, what do you mean? Whatever you want to teach. And I said, okay, that's opening up a whole can of worms. That's scary to get that. And so being a clarinetist and having this very strong band background, I didn't know how to teach choir. I got a little bit of choral experience in my college years. I took like a choral methods class, and then I sang in the university chorus for 1 semester. That was it. So that was the extent of my choir experience. And so I came in, I'm like, all right, I know how to teach high school band really well. I know how to teach middle school beginning band really well. Choir, that's going to be fun. That's going to be a struggle, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun challenge. Drumline, now I got that idea from a grad student at CSU, because I was kind of freaking out over the summer. I'm like, oh my goodness, like my predecessor started a marching band there. And I kind of looked at that and I'm like, I have no idea how many kids I'm going to have. Like, word on the street is I might have only like 7-8 kids in marching band. I don't feel comfortable teaching a marching band of that size. So somebody suggested, hey, why not do drumline? And so I said, okay, I'll try it. I know nothing about drumline. Let it be known. I didn't know anything about it, but I came in. They already had pre-existing drumline equipment through a school grant from a couple years prior, and so I came in. Instead of a marching band, I did that drumline ensemble, and I'll tell you a little bit about it later, but it was wildly successful. It was such a strong community engagement thing, and also it's so easy to sound good with those smaller numbers and have that be your primary marching ensemble. So I started that with insane success, and I'll tell you more of how that carries over into Alamosa in just a second, but
yeah,
it was crazy.
I
awesome.
love how you used the numbers, and instead of being like, I don't know what to do, and just like going with what happened before, right? Finding something that would be successful for your kids in your community. Like, I have 7 kids, make a drumline. That's amazing. What were the numbers of your other classes, and how did you navigate that? Like, how many kids were in your choir? How many kids were in your concert band? And how did you navigate that?
I'd love to talk about this because it's scary. I mean, imagine you're a first-year teacher, you walk into your choir class, there's 1 kid. There's I had 1 kid in choir when I first started, and he, exceptional musician, all-state choir student, oh my gosh, like absolutely blown away. And coming from, I didn't know how to teach choir, to now I'd like, oh my gosh, I get the privilege the honor to like teach this all-state choir student, that was really scary for me. But and the kid, I'm not going to name names obviously, but I'm just going to speak in generalities. He, I mean, in a sense, he taught me how to teach choir. Not like he would stand in front and like tell me how to do things, but just like I kind of learned from him. Okay, here, like I know how to do these warm-ups. I know how to do this. Hey, what did you experience with your last director? Stuff like that. And then a couple months later, I had a student late enroll. So now I had two kids in choir, both boys actually, both boys. And so we had our very first concert in the fall. I had this phenomenal all-state tenor baritone voice. And then I had this also, he had been in choir previously, so we know this phenomenal bass voice. And then I'm a pretty low alto, and so we just sang TBB arrangements. We sang Dust in the Wind, and I remember joining in on that concert as a trio. My principal came up to me afterwards, and she's like, I think that was cool that you joined in to fill a need. And so that I have to join in to fill a need happened a lot. Like, I mean, and in my drum line, I would have kids, because we were still in quarantine and COVID times a little bit, I would have kids absent for our halftime show. I remember I had one bass drummer, and she was scared to death, and so I slapped a bass drum on, slapped a uniform on, and I was like, well, I look pretty young, let me just nobody's gonna know, right? So I slapped a uniform on.
I can't do that anymore.
Why does that high schooler have a beard?
Yeah.
I marched with them, and I walked right past my athletic director, and I looked at him and I said, these uniforms are hot. And he looked at me, he's like, what? And I went on and I marched with those kids. And so it was a lot of just getting really, really creative. Similarly, I had a high school band of 7. And actually only 5 of them were in the class. And so the other 2 could not make the class. And so I would have after school rehearsals. And I'm going to be honest, I burned myself out, and I burned the kids up pretty quickly doing that. So that was not a viable solution, because in rural schools, you have such a schedule conflict.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I was the only music teacher. There were like 2 social studies teachers, 3 English teachers, 2 math teachers. You're going to conflict with everything under the sun, and it was very challenging to figure out how to make that work. And so I did a lot of weird things with trying to arrange parts and kind of make it fit. I'm lucky that I actually had a pretty balanced ensemble, and I had kids who could double on instruments. And I always like made sure I told them, like, you guys, this is not normal, because something that's interesting in rural schools, students seem to try to compare themselves to the haves and the have-nots. Like, I always got comments like, oh man, like we just don't have the same things as those like city schools, and like we're just not as good as those city schools. But I kept trying to tell them, I'm like, did you know that a lot of students in city schools, they only focus on one instrument because there aren't as many opportunities for them to double and everything. I was lucky enough to double on alto sax and jazz, and then clarinet and concert band, but like that was definitely not the case for the very large majority of that my peers in high school. And so they would double on instruments. I remember I took them to a CBA festival, and one of them was like, you know, one song, flute, and then she puts the flute down, picks up the saxophone, was like playing it and stuff. And they didn't understand how important that was until, like, not only I just kept like harping on them, like, no, this is good, you have to understand, like, this is very impressive. But then these like other people would see that, and they'd be like, oh yeah, like that's not normal, you guys should be very proud of yourself. So that was something that I thought was really unique about a rural school circumstances. The kids do everything. I mean, they're all in sports, they're all in multiple sports, they're all in multiple band classes if they can try to swing it that way. They all play more than one instrument. I mean, most of my all of my students in drumline during pep band season, I'd say, okay, you're learning a concert band instrument, let's pick up your concert band instrument, we're going to play it in the stands, because I didn't want a drumline and for basketball band at that point. And so we just, you know, got together a very small ragtags type of pep band and went from there. I have very fond memories of teaching there. It was very hard. I mean, 6 classes a day, they're all different, having to be a jack of all trades. I was tired.
Yeah. Well, I think it's an interesting point how you bring up, like, you have a small number of students compare, like your experience in high school, you have 140 kids in marching band at a high school of 3,000. That's like less than 10% of the student population. Yet you have 7 kids in concert band and a high school of 50. I mean, like, you percentage-wise represent a much bigger part of the school, and you give kids the opportunity to be more than one thing. In our last episode, we talked about how we learned with the students in ensemble classes that we're not super familiar with and don't consider ourselves expert. And I'm really happy that you validated that through your experience teaching choir too. I want to shift to your current job because I had the awesome opportunity to work with your kids yesterday, and I just spent the afternoon with Katie K over at her middle school and worked with a lot of wonderful students and seeing a lot of great teaching from Katie. So you made the transition from Walsenburg to Alamosa, 2 places in the middle of nowhere, Colorado. Why did you go from one middle of nowhere to another middle of nowhere?
Well, while I very much cherished my time in Walsenburg, I'm getting my master's in instrumental conducting. I want to do just a little bit more, just for selfish reasons of, what I want professionally as a musician and what's going to be also satisfying for me. Selfishly, I really like teaching band, and I wanted to have an opportunity where I got to teach more of the thing that I really like to do. I wanted to specialize just a little bit more, so I searched for jobs that would allow me to do that. But as I was looking for jobs, at that point I didn't even know what I wanted. I was just looking for jobs and everything, but I found that I did not want to go back to the city. Cost of living for one. I'd either have to, have roommates or move back in with my parents, and I love my parents, but I want to be independent. I want to be free, and I also have a cat with me now and everything. So yeah, she's great. But I kind of just looked at that and was like, well, seeing all these jobs, and I was just constantly drawn towards all these rural schools, and I kind of looked at it as, and not to try to be like a martyr or anything, but students in rural schools, they really need good music teachers, and I really developed such a special connection with the students that I had in Walsenburg, and just they were, I may have told one or both of you guys this at one point, but they were absolutely so appreciative of everything I did for them ever. I remember I took him to Adams State Honor Band my very first year. Sorry, just small segue, but it has a point. And Andre Wilkins was the clinician. And he started talking to the ensemble about the importance of being thankful for your teachers. And if you wanted to jump in a little bit more about that, I kind of heard about it from my students. But just being thankful for your teachers and all of that. And unbeknownst to me, he had this whole conversation, and then later on we get back to the hotel, and they're like, we want to go to Walmart, miss. I'm like, okay, so I take him to Walmart, and they don't have a Walmart in Walsenburg, so they're like, Walmart's the best place I've ever seen. It's so funny. I love it so much, and I love taking them to Walmart because they have such a blast. And they went in, and they all come back to the van, and one of them hands me a bouquet of flowers, and another one hands me a little tiny plant, and another one, they bought me a taco piñata, because I also gave him $20, and I said, hey, go buy me something nice, because I picked that up from Dave Williams. And I love it. I have it in my Alamosa classroom right now. And they were just gestures like that, just always saying thank you. I'd always getting little notes from them all the time, and they were they appreciated having a music teacher so much, because they know that it's hard to get a music teacher out there. As a matter of fact, they don't have a music teacher. They couldn't find one after I left. So I kind of was really moved by that. I'm like, these rural students, I had such a robust high school experience, and I'm very, very thankful for what I had. And I just want to take that and, allow students who normally wouldn't get some of those same opportunities just as much of an opportunity as possible, and I'm really motivated by stuff like that.
Yeah. Katie, it's so exciting to hear people who are working in these rural areas and are so excited about music and teaching music, and you're just bringing such great energy, and just kudos to you. It's really inspiring, and that's what we need. We've talked about it a lot on this podcast, that everybody deserves a fabulous music education. no matter where you live, no matter where you're from, right? And it's really cool to see more educators coming out here that are excited about providing that experience. So thank you for the hard work that you're doing. Seriously.
Oh, it's...
Yeah.
I have a blast. I really love what I do, and, you know, I don't think I would move away from rural teaching. I really don't, just because it's so nice to just kind of have that experience of being able to give that to students.
Absolutely.
So in your current job, what's something that you would want to know more about or get better at to better serve your students here in Alamosa?
Well, Andre, we talked about this a little bit a week ago, actually. I got to hang out with Andre Wilkins for like the entire... I get to hang out with you all the time. It's so awesome. I mean, being so close to Salida, number one, I get to see two of my best friends. It's so cool. I get to pick your brains all the time. Something that I really wanted to get better at, and this is why I'm getting a degree in, I really want to improve my conducting skills. And I talked a little bit to with Andre about this, but just I feel like if I have a better sense of, you know, score study, how to interpret a piece of music, and how to non-verbally communicate that, I can convey so much more than just notes and rhythms on a page. Just some, you know, extra musical values, some world values, depending on the piece of literature that I choose. And so that was a huge motivator for me to move to this school, because now in my current position, I'm split between the middle school and the high school. So I teach concert band at the high school, then I teach drumline at the high school, carry that over from Walsenburg. It's been awesome here doing drumline. It's been cool bringing that in. Then at the middle school, I teach middle school choir, beginning band, and intermediate band. And then I'm trying to start like a jazz band at the middle school 2 days a week for 30 minutes during study hall, and then a jazz band at the high school for 30 minutes 2 days a week during study hall as well. So now I have all these band classes, so I really get to try to put some of my conducting skills to the test and score study skills to the test, and just really force myself to be in a position where, okay, I'm teaching more band than I was before. Let me really dive in to some of these you know, nonverbal communication strategies that I haven't really been able to have the chance to do before.
So Katie, you're out here doing the work. You're banding. You're figuring out choir, figuring out drumline. You're bringing music to these areas. What's something you've been really proud of from your career so far?
I mean, just to speak a little bit more on drumline, I didn't realize how cool it was to have like just a community engagement component. Number one, like I'm really proud of just, I mean, I'm not trying to sound like I'm bragging on myself, but I'm really proud of myself for being flexible, because that's hard. I mean, you jump in as a first year teacher, you're just like, I don't know things, and it kind of just gets crazy, and you have to just be the jack of all trades. Number one, I think that's cool. Number two, with the whole drumline, I'm really proud of being able to accomplish this school community thing where you know, I think it's so unique in rural towns that, I mean, there's such an opportunity there for the community engagement where that maybe you don't get as much of in larger towns. Like here, everybody knows everybody. Like I was I mean, I can walk down the street and just be like, oh hey, I know that person, like all the time, 24/7. I'm always seeing people I know, and that's, I think, is a really unique, special experience. So for me, starting the drumline, between the two, and I mean, this is my first year in Alamosa, so I haven't like built the drumline too much yet, but just it was really effective community engagement for Walsenburg. Like I had people calling me up and saying, hey, we're having like a ribbon cutting ceremony, can I have the drumline play? And that's starting to happen here, where now the elementary and the middle school is like, hey, I heard you have a drumline. We would love if you would come into our school and play at the pep rally and get the students all excited and stuff. Then I had another teacher at another school just call me up and say, hey, my students saw your drumline students playing at a basketball game. We wanna do a whole drumline battle. So it's cool because this one thing that is centralized in a school is like, oh, people are hearing about it. They're like, oh wow, like music, go music. We want to engage with that, and they're coming in and, you know, just that's something that I think has been really cool, and I love doing that because, I mean, why do we teach music? You know, like, we're here to not only serve our students, but we're serving our communities, and we have a very unique job in that, you know, music is for everybody. And so when we have this cool program inside of a school and we share it with others in the community, it just makes us stronger and everything. And I mean, we also have a very robust community band in Alamosa, and a community jazz band, and I've pulled them in to like come work with the bands. And the director of the community band said one time to me, he said, well, the community band only survives through collaboration with the schools and everything, because
that's awesome.
those are the people who feed the community band. And not just to name drop real quick, that was Dr. Kerry Hart. He's awesome. He's a director of the SLP community band. He's kind of the best. But
that's awesome, Katie. Well, we're running out of time. We got to get back and do some chaperoning, so we're going to close this out. Being our first guest, you are the first person that is not Katie or me
thank you.
to answer this question. What was your favorite musical moment as a student and your favorite musical moment as a teacher?
Oh man, I had so many favorite moments as a student, but I will talk about one really cool one. When I think I was a junior or senior in high school, there was a local band called Big Gigantic. They're not so local anymore. I think they kind of got a little bit bigger. Big Gigantic came to my high school director and said, hey, we want a marching band to be like a background for our set when we go perform. And so they invited our marching band, like half of us, it was mostly just the student leaders who got to go to Red Rocks, and we performed on stage at Red Rocks, like in the background of the band Big Gigantic playing. And that was a moment I'll never forget, and that was really cool. And I kind of think about, like, wow, I got such a cool experience because I was in music and everything. And now that I'm a teacher, some of my favorite musical moments and everything, just in general, oh my gosh, I love taking students to honor ensembles, because I get the opportunity to see who they are as human beings and everything, and I get to help guide them. And, you know, like, oh, we go to a restaurant or something, like maybe they don't know how to tip or something, like, oh, teach them, like, just install like little nuggets that are just outside of music about like just being a good person, because we're not just teaching them to be musicians, we're teaching them to be a whole person.
Absolutely.
Which I think is really cool about what we do. And so I love taking them out because their personality really shines through, because they're not only in a school setting, they have an awesome musical experience, and they get to see the world around them and everything. Like, some of them, I just took middle schoolers to All-State Choir in Denver, and they're like, wow, this is so cool. You know what, like, maybe I ought to, you know, think about going to a college in Denver. I really like the scene here. I think it's really cool.
Sure.
And just, they would not get that experience, or maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't, you know, but for some of them, maybe they wouldn't get that experience otherwise, you know, of being able to get out of their rural town just in the middle of nowhere and go see what the world actually looks like. And so those are my favorite experiences. And my goodness, like, as tired as I get with honor bands and honor choirs, I mean, I'm sure that you guys can relate. That, at the end of the day, to me, is a super gratifying musical experience, because it's not just about making music, it's about, you know, who they are as humans and getting to experience them just, I mean, out in the wild, away from a structured school setting.
Absolutely, Katie. Well, we can't thank you enough for being here. It's been wonderful having you. I really enjoyed observing your classes yesterday. It's clear kids down in rural Colorado are getting some great music education from you. Thank you. Katie O, why don't you tell everyone where they could connect with us on social media and email?
Yes, thank you for listening to us today. Please feel free to comment, send us emails. We would love to hear about your experiences, any questions, any suggestions that you might have. You can email us at ruralmusicteacher.pod@gmail.com. You can follow us on Instagram at ruralmusicteacher.pod, or on Facebook at ruralmusicteacherpod.
Thank you all. Have a good one.